Here. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We got smiles all around. We're having a good time already, having a good conversation. Thank you all for joining us here, whether you're watching on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitch. We really appreciate it so much. And if you're enjoying a good beverage, as I see Stephanie is as well, I got water and a cider just in case, depending on how the conversation goes. I have been looking forward to this conversation all week. We had a great show last week. Can't wait for today. But I'll stop right here first and say thank you for joining us today for Indie Game Club. My name is Michael Zhitkov. I'm the host today. I'm also the founder and executive director of Potions and Pixels. We are a nonprofit organization based here out of beautiful Charlotte, North Carolina. And we have an amazing group of guests for you today. You can see this whole beautiful panel right here to the side. And I will introduce them. But first, I am going to go over some of the great programming that we have coming up. So first, I will talk, of course you guys are here for Indie Game Club, so we stream on Mondays where we play the games, and then on Thursdays we discuss those games. So please join us every week for that. I'm also excited that next week, one of the games that we will be featuring will actually have a interview with the developer. Just got hot off the presses. Just found that out about an hour or two ago, so stay tuned for that. Also, hopefully you guys are joining us for our Tuesday discussion series. Last week we had an amazing panel, Black Voices in Gaming, really enjoyable conversation. These have been going really well. Hopefully you caught that. If you did not, you can still find it right now on Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook, so make sure to check that out. This week, on Tuesday, we had an amazing discussion about women in gaming. That was an amazing panel. That was our highest rated program yet, and people really enjoyed participating, and thank you to the Athena Alliance and for all of them for participating, and for all of our guests. We really appreciate it. Next week, we have custom game controllers. Super excited to have this conversation. Did you know we have several companies here locally that are designing custom game controllers, as well as individuals who are modding their controllers. So if you're interested in this topic, whether you're exploring the art side, the tech side, or the human side of this, please stay tuned for that conversation. And then we will be ending August with Games to the Rescue. I'm really excited about this. This will be a discussion about how games are being used in the medical field to fight against coronavirus. Yes, indeed, there are several games right now being used to fight against coronavirus. And then moving into September, we have Hispanic Voices in Gaming, where we will be interviewing Julio y Nazario. If you're familiar with this designer, he is on a roll. He has been designing games left and right, and I think has at least 3 published games that are coming out this year, including the game in the background you see there called Control, which was recently released in Target. Cannot wait for that conversation. And of course, we also have game nights on Wednesdays and Saturdays. Join us on our Discord. If you're not on our Discord, I don't know what you're doing. You got to get on that. We play video games and board games every Wednesday and Saturday. All right, couple more things. Smash League. We had an event last night. I saw Tony was part of that. Appreciate Tony, who's on our panel here today. Smash and Learn. So I'll just say briefly about the Smash League. Whether you are a brand new Smash player, whether you are an expert Smash player, this league is designed for you in mind. It's designed for all ages. It is designed in a way to kind of fight against some of the shortcomings we traditionally see, where you go to a tournament and you just constantly lose to the best player. Well, no more of that. We have our ranking system divided so that you're only playing against players, or I should say predominantly playing against players of the same rank as you. So you can win a tournament even if you're kind of a brand new player. It's a great opportunity to play and learn. So Wednesdays are our Smash and Learn sessions. Yesterday we covered Mario. Tomorrow we have King of the Ring. This is essentially a scrimmage session. Come one, come all. Again, regardless of skill level, this is designed for everyone. So please join us tomorrow at 6 p.m. That will be streamed right here on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch as well. And then this Saturday we have a tournament coming up. All of this, again, is free. You can win real money this Saturday. So please check that all out. You can check it out at potionsandpixels.com/league. Okay, perfect. So let's get back to our awesome panelists, our guests, whatever we want to, our friends, whatever we want to call them today. We want you in the stream, wherever you're watching. Join the chat. You got questions, you got comments, you got concerns, whatever it may be. Throw those out here. All right. Without further ado, let me start pointing to folks because I want these beautiful people to start introducing themselves. Let's start with the amazing individual right above me right here. Amar, can you give us an introduction?
I don't have this set up, so I don't know how this works.
Oh, sorry. I feel like I'm in the Brady Bunch.
Why are you pointing at Mike? What are you trying to say?
It's like Brady show, like we look at each other. So I'm Amar. I'm from Charlotte, North Carolina. Been playing video games my whole life with the older brothers playing, so I pretty much grew up with a controller in my hand. When I'm not working or playing video games, I work on video games, and the game I've been working on has been crab volleyball, and it's still work in progress. It's still great stuff, but yeah, you can follow it at crabvolleyball.com. You'll also find it on Facebook, and you can follow it there too. So that is me.
Check that game out, people. Crab volleyball. It is so much fun. We've played it at like live events. I see Stephanie writing it down right now. It is so much fun. Honestly, it is exactly as Amar said. It's crabs playing volleyball with one another. It's a great game to play live in person with crowds. It's amazing. Okay, well, hopefully you guys can see who's on the top row over here. So we'll move over to the side with Mr. Evan. Can you introduce yourself, please?
Good evening, world. My name is Evan. I have been a part of Postal and Pistol since about inception almost.
Yeah.
I remember walking into the one at the Underground. I believe that was the first one I went into, and I was like, "Wow, what's all this? This is pretty cool." And I saw a rock band set over there that called my name, and after I played with a group of folks, I was like, "You know what? I should hit up Mike and see if I could lend my expertise." I have had a collection that was literally collecting dust, and I was like, maybe people will like this. And turns out people did like it, so I've been with it ever since. And I love helping out, doing what I can. I'm just here to share my expertise with the world. You can follow me. I'm Wheeze W3AZ3 on Xbox and Steam. Easy Win on PlayStation Network. So I love the game with y'all, and thanks for having me on here, Mike.
Awesome, thank you so much. And I love the arcade one-up machine you got in the background there. That's a beaut right there. That's a great one. Awesome. So let's pass it over to the final person in that top row over there, Jordan.
Yes, sir. Hello, everyone. I'm Jordan. Let's see. Gaming. I'm a little new to gaming. No, I've been gaming all my life. Amar knows. It's been very important to me. I play all kinds of games. More specifically, I play StarCraft 2 competitively. I'm not like a pro or anything, but I can dance with some of the higher level people in the semi-pros, and I do tournaments every once in a while. It's a lot of fun. I used to run the StarCraft organization at UNCC, but that was like 8 years ago. More recently, I've helped run the Killer Queen arcade tournaments and events at Abari, which seems like it's no longer going to be around, unfortunately. Rest in peace. Shout out to Zach.
Shout out to Abari. Shout out to Zach.
I got my Abari thing right here.
Pour someone on my keyboard.
Absolutely.
Oh, God, don't do that. But that's a 5v5 arcade game. Lots of fun. Hopefully, everything smooths over with COVID and we can get back to it. But yeah, that's me. I stream some too, mostly StarCraft, but other stuff. My stream is twitch.tv/Tempest636. And I'm super happy to be here. And I love checking out new indie games and all different kinds of games. So I'm excited for the discussion.
Awesome. Thank you, Jordan. And for everybody at home, if you missed the names of the Twitch streams and all of our guests here, we will make sure to send out some social media posts tagging all of that. So definitely check that out. Hey, Emmy, thanks for sharing the stream. Appreciate it. All right, Stephanie, let's pass it over to you.
Oh, hey. Sorry, I wasn't expecting. I was like the top row. Hey.
To the bottom row, to us bottom dwellers here.
Yeah, sorry. Is there people below? No, you don't lie to me, man. But yeah, I'm Steph Shosteinsky. I don't even know how to start this story because it all starts off with two ladies who were pregnant at the same time, and they were just friends. And it turns out one was born earlier in the summer with Michael, and in August, out this one right here. And so we've known each other since,
By showing everyone A brief description of this game right here. Let me make sure this audio is correct. Sorry, 1 second here. Okay, so the Night Fisherman, this game was designed by Far Few Giants. The developers, Anthony Default and Chard. Real quick description here. It's a short game by Default and Chard. The English Protection Group keep a watchful eye on the Smuggler's Run, a renowned crossing for vessels bound for Calais containing illegal immigrants. When faced with an armed man, his voracious appetite for conversation, and nobody else for miles, can you safely get rid of him? This is a single, film-like scene. You direct the fisherman's actions, as well as directing the camera shots between the cinematic angles available. The first of 12 small experimental narrative games to be released monthly. All right, so panel. Let's start with that. Let's do this actually before we go to Outcast lovers here. Let's start with this game because they're both linked, but I think it's worth discussing this one first. This obviously deals with a pretty serious subject matter. We're dealing with immigration. We're dealing with refugees. These are obviously really serious topics during this time. Before I kind of delve into maybe some of the more heavier stuff, can I get some general impressions of this? Can somebody describe this game? Because it doesn't look like your typical game. Does anybody want to jump in here and kind of tell the viewers what the experience is like?
I would say it's kind of like a choose-your-own-adventure novel, but it's a game, so it's very atmospheric.
Yeah.
It's in a way like I saw it more as like an interactive experience. Like I'm sure we'll get to it later, but like even calling it a game felt odd to just say that I would play this game, right? That's it felt like just interactive experience of like just being placed in a position and have to imagine yourself there with a story being told, and what would you do if you were there in a way.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Amara. I think one of the things is that it is an interactive short. So, like, as soon as you get to the website, it says, like, hey, we're an interactive short. Definitely the two games playing to each other because it is a story. I definitely I enjoyed it overall. It is it's very funny. Someone said the Indiana Jones. I was thinking Captain Underpants, like where you choose your own adventure books. You know, I was sort of thinking of that. But definitely, it's a linear story. It's a very linear story. I looked on Monday when Mike actually played it. We got the same exact endings, and that is because it leads into the second game, or it leads into the second interactive short. So I wouldn't necessarily, I guess, qualify it as too much as a game, but more of definitely an interactive short. But that doesn't take away any value from it at all.
Yeah, let's talk about that piece right there, because I think it's really interesting, the idea of categorizing this as a game or not. I think we, as gamers in general, gamers, not just us, the 6 people here, but in general, are rather obsessive over what's this type of game, what's hardcore, what's that, or many of us are. I agree with you, Steph. Let's try not to be. But
I'm not.
Is it, is it worthwhile? I mean, how is it? Is it worthwhile even discussing whether this is a game or not? And I ask that because, to Tony's point that, it's worthwhile experience regardless. Is this the type of entertainment that you all would like to consume more of? Like Bandersnatch on Netflix. Oh. Does that interest you? This idea of maybe limited interactivity, maybe not open world, fully, decision trees overload. Is this you guys see this as a potential like future outlet? Maybe even a different terminology for games like or interactive movies. Stephanie, why don't we?
Yeah.
Or Tony, let's start with you here.
Wait, are you talking to me?
Either one, yeah. Whoever wants to jump in there.
I kind of wanted to just jump in and
do.
It just reminds me a little bit of like a holodeck like experience on Star Trek. It's like, okay, we gotta figure out what would happen if we saw some guy with a rifle with part of this group, in the open water, and then you go with, everything that would happen. And sometimes the ending is going to be the same no matter what. So you're trying to get those possibilities. So like me, I don't know if it's a game. I don't know if it's easier to call it a game for some casual gamers as myself that are just, I don't know everything there is to know and all the definitions and terms. But yeah, I definitely, as a teacher, I'm definitely into something like this, especially like a quick learning experience to be in the in the shoes of somebody else.
Yeah, and for the viewers, wherever you may be, just to give you an idea, when Tony and Stephanie say quick, we're talking quick. We're talking. I think the designers themselves called it like. I think their terminology was like a coffee break game. We're talking like 10 or 15 minutes here on one playthrough. As Tony said, there were. He played it slightly different than I did. There aren't many choices to make, and the fact that your save file doesn't, it doesn't seem to transfer to the next games in the series, I think is an indication that we're dealing with a more linear story here. But I love the idea of, let's talk about the content of the game itself. This is a very intense game, and it's probably magnified by the ability to choose your camera controls. Evan, when you were playing with this, like, how are you experiencing that on the camera control side? What were you doing? Because it almost felt like you were your own cinematographer, right?
Yeah, I think so very much. I mean, I right away when I played through it, the music, it really builds the tension. Because at first,
Absolutely.
I knew, it started off in a way that seemed very chill and kind of lull you to a false sense of security, and then as it goes along, it's like, something's about to go down, So I think the music does a really good job with kind of building up that tension, and I kind of focused on. It was odd because like when I did it, I kind of focused mainly on from the other guy's perspective. I wasn't really too much focused on the fisherman. I didn't notice my boat and what was behind me until like
me too.
After all, I was like,
are we talking spoilers?
Yes,
I know it's a short game.
Okay, cool.
But,
Yes, we'll do a spoiler alert here.
So yeah,
or I can't do it. We're live, so I can't do the magic of the internet.
Right.
But yes, everybody at home, we are talking spoilers. It's a short game, and I will say this. I'll get right back to you, Evan. But for everybody, as we talk these spoilers, I don't think that actually changes or really ruins the experience. Hopefully, it looks like everybody's in agreement with me. I think that's something where even if you hear about all the games we're discussing today, they're so short, they're worthwhile to play. But Evan, please continue that point.
So like I had to play it when I played it through after I had already played it the first time and got to the ending. I wanted to go back, like kind of Tony what was alluded to, and kind of play it again, but try to choose something different just to see if anything different would happen. And then, but it stayed pretty linear as he alluded to. So, but that's really the only point I was going to make there.
Yeah. Jordan, outside of the camera, I think the writing was really intense too. Like, I mean, when you're reading this, I thought the writing was really well done. It just had me honestly at the edge of my seat, especially because I'm streaming the game. It feels like tense. It feels like an intimate experience that other people are watching you experience. How did you respond to the writing, to the pacing, to the structure of the whole the narrative?
So specifically the writing and the pacing, I'll say as the language got more intense and the stage directions, right? The writing about the guy with the rifle, I'll say, his posture. Yeah. I was just like he said, I was like, oh shit, something's going down. And I'll say this, I played it again a second time too. The music is not scripted per se. It's not like in this one. It's not like something happens then the music changes. It actually just flows over time. So I think it's 1 or 2 tracks over time. I got so lucky with my first playthrough because it wasn't at the end, at the climax. Good experience. Like I was in it, man.
Yeah, shout out to the music designer.
Yeah.
Seriously. Yeah. And I wanted to add one more thing.
Please.
You even asked about would it be considered a game. That kind of ties into a topic I wanted to talk about with this. One of my favorite genres, though I don't play it that much because it's stressful, as you guys might imagine, is horror games. I love horror games. But I've had some conversations with people where they're just like, oh man, like, I don't know, man, horror movies are already hard enough, whatever. From my point of view, I like horror movies because they scare me, and I like horror games because they scare me. They add a level of intensity. The reason why I consider this a game is because it has the elements of control, where you are changing camera, you are clicking through the read, you're the one driving the action, even if it's very minimal. That adds a level of immersion, a level of distraction. I don't know about you guys, but I turn off the lights when I played these games for sure. Like I knew right away, seeing the color of the background, I'm like, turn off the lights and just the music. So for me to be that immersed and like making the control, I was more nervous than if I was watching other characters because I was like, can I save him? Can I do something? It was a great experience because of that.
I love that point because I think this game it knows what it wants to be, in my opinion. It's not trying to explore like other elements of interactivity. It is trying to tell like a tight, concise story in a short amount of time and allow you like you said, to experience it from different angles. Amar, as far as like the subject matter, did you know much about this game going into it? Obviously, you knew you were going to
I
play it this week, but what was your
Yeah,
reaction playing it?
no, I mean, I had no idea that this was going to be like the topic discussed. There has been a lot of games that are similar, where they are like kind of like personal jumping into topic like this, and they are hit or miss. You know, it's like it's either that relate to the topic, or it's either that it's not a game for me. I know
Can
like
you
a
give us
big
some
game
examples?
is yeah, like Gone Home is a big example of like one
Yeah,
of those games that is considered to be pretty much one of those that started this genre, and it's talking about a lot of heavy topics. But I struggle with that game without reviewing that one. I struggle
yeah,
with that one because it was just set in Portland. It was set with like different music, like punk bands and stuff
yeah.
like that. So I was just not as interested into that one. And I still enjoyed it. It's almost
Sure.
like I respected it as watching a movie that I know. It's a story about something that I just know nothing about. So it's like I felt like I learned something, but I didn't relate. With this one, I mean, the whole like refugees background. I mean, I'm just like everyone here, just like everyone in the U.S. or
Sure.
most people in the U.S. We all refugees in one way or another. So like to see, and also like knowing about the news, ever since we had the situation with Syria and like other countries as well. We had a lot of influx of refugees, especially like hearing the news about what's going on in Europe. And I know that was like a fear even spreading here in the US, and that's politics, right? Like I'll just leave it as that. But even saying that, like it's not even politics. It's like
Sure.
humanitarian like issue, right? Like it's a important topic, and I think that's what makes this like I would call it game just for the simplicity. That's what makes this game
Sure.
so great. Is like for me, like when I started like writing down notes when I was playing the second time, I was looking at the news. Like that is not something that you do when you're like reviewing games, and that's when I said that okay, this game is really good. It's making me like think about things that are bigger than how do I beat a level or something. Like I was wondering, why is he so proud of like Britannia, for example. Like why did that guy use the language that he did, and told the story about was like the rats and the lions, and
Mm-hmm.
like you knew that one was like rooted in like in some ignorance or hate, I would say.
Sure.
um but like so it was really tense from that source, and I even went in and saw like a bunch of news and why it's happening in Britain, and why and I was like, wow, this game is putting more into it here than just accomplishing so much in just a couple of minutes of
Sure.
gameplay, really.
And we should bring up that background. Thank you for mentioning that. The designers here all are based in the UK. Of course, if you do follow uh, global affairs, you'll know that the UK and United States are share kind of a similar political path over these last few years, especially with discussion with regarding immigration, discussion involving United Kingdom's involvement in the European Union. Of course, there was Brexit we saw several years back. Stephanie, you and I are obviously first generation American. We were the first members of our family born here in the United States. How did you respond to this? I mean, we grew up hearing these stories from our parents who didn't have it easy. How did these immigration stories, this story, resonate with you?
I've heard stories. Both of my parents have two different ways that they came to America, but nothing quite like this. And so definitely with privilege and things like that, our parents were able to, go on a flight and things like that,
Sure,
and kind of, things like that. And they didn't have to go through this kind of violent entry into the country. So definitely reflecting on that, but also just listening to the stories of my mom's hardships and things like that. But yeah, definitely being the fisherman and seeing the difference of, you know, the refugee behind you, and if you play it twice, they're in a different position behind you, and that almost gave me some
Really?
hope. Yeah, so
Can
the
you talk
first
about
time
that? I
we
don't think I
played-
noticed that part.
Oh, okay. So the first time we played, I think, can we talk about specifics of the
Please.
things we chose? Okay. So in the beginning, when you are the fisherman and you pick how to bait your hook, and so either you have a live maggot and then you bait it live, or you already have boiled bait and you just throw it out. So like one's very aggressive and one's very like kind of passive bait. So we chose different ways of doing that. And then when you get the angle of behind you, that really takes you into like, oh my gosh, wait, what? Like what's behind me? So the first one, the refugee's kind of like laying and splayed and almost looks like asleep or
Really?
almost like passed out. It was very scary. Because I was like, what is going on? And then the second time they were kind of hidden like in a cave behind you, so they were like more hidden. So just that, it almost gave me hope. I was like, okay, maybe we can get through this because they're better hidden. But yeah, the ending's the same. Oh, it can be slightly different. Okay, I don't know what to say, but it's definitely play through it because even if we say it leads to one thing, the journey is still different. So it's definitely worth to try it a few times. And just like you said, it was a coffee shop, or not coffee shop, but like coffee break game. Yeah, you can definitely play it again. And then, you know, stop and maybe research a little bit about the situation that you were in.
One thing I want to say, and I noticed it while watching Michael, is that like they do well. I now revisited with the camera because you know both games are did a great job with the camera. But one amazing thing that I remember seeing is when Michael was playing. Was it on Monday? I would say.
Monday.
Yeah. So we were playing on Monday, and he was switching between the cameras, and he said, "Oh, I'm more comfortable." Something like, "I'm more comfortable with this camera." So he liked one of the cameras where he was able to see both.
Yes.
You know, both points of contact, right? And it was just amazing that they provided that camera and that Michael thought that it was actually the comfortable one because he was able to see both sides. One cool thing also is that one of the cameras actually switches and it turns between being like kind of like the face like this into completely switches to the bag behind you. And you end up like losing that camera halfway. Like sometimes like the cameras actually switch up without just by the dialogue, and I really like that as well. Like it's almost like with movies you don't have that option, right? Like you watch a movie and they give you more power, I guess. Sorry, like in movies they have more power by like, you know, seeing the emotions of the people and stuff like that, by changing the camera back and forth, you know, both people from the back and so on. Having the ability to do this in this one like made it even more immersive. I felt like I'm in control of like trying to see what is going on. And it made it even more uncomfortable to just be able to like pick one and not be able to like, you know, say anything, right? It's like seeing this play out and being like, oh, I'm seeing both of them now talking. This is tough. And yeah, and also to add, Michael at the end his face was just red. I just wanted to say that. He was really uncomfortable with this. So
yeah, and to your point, I love what you just said there, because I think what you said there captures something really unique mechanically, where you are able to control the camera angle but not much else. So you feel powerless in the experience, and yet you're still like some element of control, some element of trying to kind of understand the scene better. Yeah, the game definitely makes you feel very uncomfortable. And Tony, I want to bring you in here in 1 second. I want to show the Outcast Lovers trailer first, so people can. Do you want to jump in on this, or can I transition to the next one?
No, definitely transition to. Well, actually, this would be a good commentary to transition.
Yeah,
into.
Please.
So the moneymaker of this game is really the camera angles. I'm not gonna lie. The first time I played the game, I'm just sitting there reading because, you know, I just can't multitask like that. So so I was just reading the whole time, and I was like, oh, okay. But then the second time I played around, I'm switching all the angles, and you see different perspectives. And then the idea is that the story, the writing is very rich, and to see how it connects into the second one. I'm not gonna lie. I played them as two separate games, and I played them one on one day, one on the other day. Had
Yep.
no idea that they connected until Monday when Mike Mike played it. I'm like, oh my god, that's how it connects. But that's a good transition into the next game, and we can
Right.
talk about that. Oh yeah, by the way, that is a shotgun on the guy's back.
Yeah.
I'll just leave it like that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That adds tension to the whole scene. No, I'm glad
Yeah.
you mentioned that, Tony. I'm not gonna lie. When I scheduled these games, I knew that the developers were releasing one game a month, and this first game, the Night Fisherman, I knew was part of the Itch racial justice and equality bundle, which we're kind of exploring through Indie Game Club. But Outcast Lovers came out right afterward. So it was actually not part of the bundle. And initially, there was no clear indication that they were essentially a continuation of the story. I mean, clearly they're visually similar, but there wasn't a clear idea. And I want to get to that in a moment because I'm curious what you all think in terms of whether that was intentional or not, or whether you can play these experiences separately from one another. But first, let's transition over here to a trailer for the Outcast Lovers from the same developers. Alright, so again, that was the trailer for the Outcast Lovers, also by Default and Shard, with music from Richard Campbell. Yeah, so I'm going to go back to that question I just asked right there. Why do you all think, do you think it was a conscious decision on the developer's part not to say, the Night Fisherman 2 or Outcast, the way that they've actually named this series?
Yeah.
Is there a reason?
It was. I think it was a conscious decision. So they are. So I don't want to get it confused. They are two. They can be two standalone stories. They had actually addressed very different topics, but similar in a linear, one section to the next. They can be standalone. I thought it, like I said, I thought it was just really cool when I saw Mike playing it, and I'm like, holy smokes! I played this game like twice, and I had no idea that the boy from the second one is actually from the first one. And because of that actually added so much value in it. And we were talking about the ideas that it's a very linear story. You're not going to sit there and get like a bunch of different combinations, because there is another section coming up next month that probably leads into it. So you're probably going to get the same ending. But what I can tell you, the fact that these are two stories that connect to each other, it almost opens up like a universe. It opens up like a universe. Like, oh man, the fisherman guy, and then the two couple, or the couple that was also speaking about the boy. It becomes almost like I don't want to say like the Marvel Cinematic Universe or something like that,
Yeah.
but it becomes a universe, and you're like, wow, I see how things pace together. So I'm actually I'm really excited to look into the third one too.
So I mean, I actually played them in the reverse order. I actually started with the Outcast Lovers.
Interesting. I'm almost glad to hear that, because I want to hear how the experience
It
was.
was by mistake, right? But that happened, and I feel like in a way I almost got spoiled. I feel like there's some things definitely Outcast Lover I think did better, in a way. But just to kind of also add into the point of the being in the universe, we don't know who the fisherman is, right? He's still a fisherman, and he was just drinking beer on his I don't know what they call it, boat thingy. But we're still trying to figure out that story of what was going on. And even that you said that it was a kid, we still never saw the kid, so we actually don't know if it was a kid or not. The thing I really love about both of those games is that they tell so much without putting in a lot, without showing a lot. It's almost as if they went in and they just like decide to remove anything that might distract from like these these stories and the goal of what they're trying to tell.
Yeah, that's a great point. Evan, I'm reflecting on this now. You guys probably all thought about this already, but it's interesting with the nomenclature that they're using is that the games are each named after the characters that are not the kid. So for those who are watching this trailer, one thing you're kind of seeing, or at least hearing from our conversation, that this kid is, I see Tony there, is getting hit with that too. I actually didn't think about this until now. It's kind of obvious, but I literally didn't think about this till now. The first game, Night Fisherman, the second one from the perspective of the Outcast lovers, it almost seems like the narrative thread here is that we're looking at all the people that are experiencing this refugee child's story. Evan, what did you think about the difference from the super tense encounter in the Night Fisherman to the conversational style that was still tense, don't get me wrong, but the conversational style of the Outcast lovers?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely wasn't as high stakes to me as the first part of it. So it kind of it was a little bit of a drop off there for me. I mean, it still had the same good art style, and you could tell that they were really trying to hammer on some serious issues. So, but the whole, I mean, to me, it's like like I said, it's one of those like choose your own adventure books from back in the day. It's really just, you get in there with a scenario, and then you kind of can steer the ship a little bit, but not too much. So, I mean, I like I said, it was a little bit of a slight drop off. I was hoping for. I knew that. I guess they were thinking how you get like a trilogy, and it's like the first one starts off real good, and like it's a little drop off in the second one, and then it finishes off.
In some ways, it feels like an intense, like slight exaggeration, maybe not, of what we have now. I mean, can you tell the viewers watching kind of what is this world that these characters are living in? Because if they don't notice right now, the Outcast lovers, the two lovers, seemingly are an interracial lesbian couple, and they've encountered this refugee boy, have a language barrier, or trying to figure out how to communicate. Can you describe like what is this world that all of these characters are dealing with in both episodes?
Well, I definitely like how Amar. Did he use the word minimal or minimalist? I think he did. We'll give him points. I don't know. We'll say he did anyway, whether he did or not. I like how it's a minimalist style, but it still packs a lot into it, because the second one more so, because you're having a full-on conversation, between two people who are comfortable with each other, as opposed to like, oh god, here's this random dude with a shotgun. But even in the first one, he talks about the fisherman. Oh, I've met your wife, and you're supposedly an upstanding person. These little points of dialogue add more to the world. The women, they mention that they live on the arse end of town or whatever, and that they're practically persecuted or outcasted or what have you anyway, assumingly because of their love. And then you get to see like art they have on the wall, like they have a political cartoon.
Yep.
It packs so much into such a simplistic game, where clearly there is butting heads of ideologies to the point where weapons are involved, in one of the games, literally. So it's pretty interesting how much they build on that.
I'm glad that you got to the point that I said it's actually also a small city, and I totally think it's a small city, and I'm glad someone else has kind of like validated my idea. and here's why: like when the game starts, well, when they enter the house, right? Like they start showing like these pieces that they have on their wall, and there's a trophy that you get, which we don't know what the trophy is for, but it was I cannot pronounce it. Is it Ola? Her name? Ola? Ola. So it was like you see like Ola carrying something, and then you see like Hero comes back to town, and there's another there was another, I forgot what the other one was. There was another big headliner about like something that is like very specific, and that can only happen in like small towns, right? Like that's when they like celebrate like the big hero doctor, which is Mary, coming back, and they start like showing those pieces. It's almost like I wish they didn't even go into the point of saying that Mary is the partner and that you are Ola. Like I feel like
I
She was
totally
like,
forgot because
okay.
I was going through the dialogue.
Dude. Okay, so
Yeah, let's talk about that.
so I'm gonna rewind to the first game. We talked about it a little bit earlier. We touched on it. Who actually noticed the kid was there before it forces your camera there? Because I did
think
not.
No,
right
I
before.
didn't.
Just right
You
before,
had
I
to
think.
look.
Maybe.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
'Cause
Yeah.
I
Maybe
was like
not.
looking at the color, and then like I was taking it in, and before you know it, I'm like, oh, this guy's threatening aura.
Yeah.
What is it, Amar, with the text? Menacing. Anyway, and it just I was just so focused on that, and I was like, holy crap, he's got a kid. Yeah, it was.
I was
But the
surprised
second
that
one,
there
I was paying attention.
I was surprised there's a child in there. Like that situation did not look like children. Like a he did not sound like a smuggler in any way, right?
No.
Like a smuggler wouldn't come into the boat. They wouldn't, and again, from the news that I read, they wouldn't have one person at the time. So it's almost like I feel like maybe the fishermen might come back. They might have some kind of a relationship with this kid while they are like trying to bring in one kid in there. That's
Depending on
part
your
with-
ending,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Because
it
when I
depends on
played my
ending.
ending, the Night Fisherman did not have a good ending in that case.
Yeah.
Yeah, mine either.
Can we
Yeah.
talk about
Yeah.
that piece? I'm really interested. So the main antagonist that we're referencing here, the individual that you saw with the shotgun strapped to their back in
Winston?
Churchill.
Churchill.
Churchill. Yeah, sorry.
Similar enough, right? Yeah. I am very curious as to if we will find out, whether through show or tell, or like how they do this narratively, why he actively chose not to kill the child.
Mhm.
Right? Because this clearly is a bad guy. This isn't some guy who just has an ideology of sorts. He seems like a crazed vigilante. Why do you all think he decided, and I think that's in all playthroughs, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
He decides, he essentially points the gun at the kid, menacingly, directly. It says like he cocked it, like stared it, lines up a shot, I think is the usage that they did, right? Like he lines it up.
Yes.
And then he actively says like, something like, I'll see you, looking forward to seeing you, or something like that, right? Does anybody remember that exact line?
I do remember that, yeah.
Well, why do
I
you think
assume he was being cheeky, but why did he leave him alive?
Do you think he thought he was going to die? I don't think so, because in the Outcast lovers, I'm pretty sure that was Churchill's silhouette with the light, if I'm not mistaken.
There's a lot of people with a light in the back.
It's true. It's true. So what do you all think? Do you think it's possible?
A lot of light.
I compare this first episode to something one of my favorite movies, and that's Inglourious Bastards. To the bit, it is so close to even like letting the child or Shoshana leave at the very end, and it's almost like a part of just a persona of just being evil, of just being like, you know what, maybe not today, maybe the hunt will continue another time. Like that's what I sense from someone who would have a shotgun in their back and try to assert their power by asking for a lighter without knowing if the person smoked. The whole conversation was just
the lighter, and then doesn't give it back to you.
Tense.
No.
He pocketed it.
And
It was right after that he pocketed it for me that the music got intense and his posture changed, and I was like,
yeah. For sure. No, that was super intense. And it seems like they're setting up, whether it is Churchill, like kind of to your point, Amar, about kind of being that like long-term like hunter antagonist throughout or not. They set him up as somebody that in my mind seems like an individual that gets a thrill from hunting immigrants and refugees. Who seems to be this English protection group, whatever ideology. We haven't fully explored their ideology, but whatever sense of legitimacy they may have in this universe, he seems to get a personal thrill from bringing justice, his version of justice, let's say, onto individuals. And
he has a nickname. Like, it's to that point. He's the Kid Fisher.
Yes, thank you for bringing that. I forgot about that.
It is so evil. It's almost like, yeah, it's so evil.
Not only that he had a nickname, but people up in this universe are apparently aware of this nickname, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's not just his.
Yep.
Well, he's like, say my name, say my name.
Oh yeah. Whenever you're around me, yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, baby, I'm
Call me
fishing.
the Kid Fisher. I
Yeah,
mean, maybe
yeah.
that's why he wanted the kid to go into the water to be a fish. So
Yeah.
this weird
man.
thing
really-
of just
Another little
Yeah.
tidbit they throw in is when he's asking, "Have you heard of it?" He's like, "Oh, well, the lefty newspapers or something like that."
Yes.
That's another small 2-word piece of narrative that
Yeah.
Yeah.
And definitely not to. I sort of pointed back. I had been just thinking for a while. Mike mentioned that he called to the point. The two titles of the story aren't about the kid. The kid is the only universal thing that is in both of the two stories. It's technically about him, but when you start thinking about it, is it really about him? When you really think about the first game with the fisherman, it's really about the fisherman and the patrol guy. The immigrants that are stored in the back. You know about them, and you obviously know the stories about immigration, but you never hear them talk. You never hear their personality. You don't know their names. Think on the second game. Is it still about the kid? Is the actual game about the kid, or is it about the two partners? Because if you remember, it's an interracial partner, and they're actually bickering back and forth about different perspectives of, hey, should we turn this kid in or not? Or hey, should we do this? Should we do that? They're actually arguing between each other. So it's very interesting how you mentioned that the actual two stories are named after the supporting characters, because you start to realize is that the immigration, the kid, it's the catalyst, but the stories are really about the supporting characters, and that's very interesting.
Yeah, so before we move on to the next game, for the sake of time,
Oh,
I do
no.
want to ask everybody, because I think we could all discuss this series so far, these two. Can I just get a show of hands? Who is interested in continuing the series? Who's planning on playing?
Oh my god!
Totally.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
dude,
totally.
absolutely.
Yeah, I'm playing it.
Yeah,
I wanna see-
I never even heard of these before this. You did me a huge favor. I'm so excited to see how the cinematic universe.
I want like a prequel just to see the fisherman, and like that story was not. I want more deeper history into the kid after 6 years. I want all of that. So
Yeah, definitely a deeper exploration. I'm hooked. I really want to explore this further. So before we go to our next game, which is SYSCRUSHER, I do want to briefly show a trailer for the next game from these developers, Far Few Giants. Or I should say, not necessarily the next game that's being released, but their next big release that I believe that they're planning next year. So I'm about to show you all the alpha teaser for Ring of Fire from Far Few Giants. So that was the trailer for Ring of Fire from Far Few Giants. So before we discuss our next game, SYSCRUSHER, any reactions to that trailer? The first kind of playable portion, the first crime, is available on itch.io right now to play. I haven't played it yet. I'm looking forward to. From our guest here, any thoughts about this one? Who's looking forward to this? I love the graphical style. What are y'all thoughts?
I was going to say the shadows looked really cool. Like it's just. That look was really good. I would have to try it to see what's going on. I mean, they kind of proven themselves, so I would give it a try.
Yeah, I would definitely give it a try. It looks like it has more interaction too.
Yeah.
More interaction from the user, whether it's direct input, or point and click. So I would definitely give this a try.
Yeah, and I love that one of the main characters is masked. I don't know what it is about that. Maybe it's just my obsession with Hotline Miami or whatever it may be. But
he has a mask on.
I'm a sucker for that, so I am really looking forward to that game. Awesome. So I am going to go ahead and show off the trailer. Actually, you know what? There is no trailer for our next game, so I'm just going to have that play on the side here. So the next game we are discussing is SYSCRUSHER from Dirigo Games. I first heard about this game after the racial justice and equality itch bundle that these games are all a part of came out. There was a number of outlets that were writing about, what are the best games. You have something like 1,500 games in there. It's a lot to dig through, right? There's so much content. We could probably do Indie Game Club for years and still have content available. But Rock Paper Shotgun, a really great PC focused journalistic outlet out of the UK, interestingly enough, also out of the UK, wrote an article about SYSCRUSHER. And the quote was, "SYSCRUSHER is the most fun I've had in an FPS all year." So needless to say, once I saw that headline and read the article, I was pretty much sold on giving this game a try. So again, no trailer for this game. So the developers literally uploaded the entire playthrough of the game. So that's what you're watching on the side there. I encourage all of you to play it. It's only about 20 to 30 minutes. Let's start with Evan here. I know you were a huge fan of this game. This is probably your favorite game of all the games we played this week in this series. Can you give a brief description for those watching this game? What are like the central mechanics? What's the basic premise? What's the story that we're looking at here?
So basically, you kind of start off. I don't know if you're pretty much like a bounty hunter or mercenary to some extent. They task you with kind of clearing out this area, and there's, I mean, I saw like a monetary thing at the end, so I mean, I'm assuming that's just an incentive for doing it. But so it's a very futuristic kind of like style and setup. Your main antagonists are robots and mechanical devices of evil, shall we say. So so I mean that's kind of how it starts. They just kind of drop you in and say, hey, take care of this for me, and we'll see you on the other side with your reward.
Yeah, the term vertical slice is often kind of thrown around in the game industry as like a whole kind of like playable section, like a slice of the game, like a fully compiled like experience. I'm not sure. It doesn't look like there's any indication that they are actually developing this long form. But I gotta say, like, if they did, I'm totally sold on this. I love the fact that this was like, there was no downtime for 20 to 30 minutes. It was a full experience. How did you guys play this? Did you guys do a full run through? Were you going for that high score? What was the play style that you guys approached this with?
I didn't finish it because then I was like, I couldn't handle it. I'm not a big FPS person. Sure. Okay. So I definitely had Jason take the reign, but I did play it for a while, and then I fell out of a lot of windows. So nice. It was a lot like Rainbow Road all over again. So don't just run away and then fall out of a window. So no, but it was definitely like once he started, he was hooked. So I was like, it's past our bedtime, man. Like 9:30. Like I have open house tomorrow morning. So, but it was definitely fun to watch too. But yeah, now I have those faces in my head.
Yeah.
When I close my eyes, I have this like sad face, like come together.
Yeah, what did you all think? Jordan, what did you think about the pacing here? I think we had like 3 kind of mini bosses before we got to the final boss, and it was the classic old school FPS where you kind of got progressively cooler, better weapons as you went along.
Yeah.
Like how did you feel? I know you play quite a few FPSs, right?
Yeah, I'm not a huge FPS person,
Sure.
but I've played plenty over the years. I had a pacing. I'm glad you asked pacing. I did not play it until today, pretty much right before this, so I was in a hurry. But that was almost fun and cool, other than dying twice, one of which was like, I wonder if you can fall out these windows, and I jumped out the window. It was fast and fun, and the first few minutes, it didn't click with me, the whole slow down focus button, but once it did, I was like, oh snap! It was almost cinematic at that point. I'm like, oh no, I turned into a room with too many enemies. Slow down. I'm perfect. I'm perfect. And then just run right through because I was in a hurry. But I felt like I could do that with the gameplay, so it was really cool that they allowed you to do that.
Yeah, so one note about that for all of you watching, you'll notice that some of these sections, just as Jordan said, like you can with the shift key, the left shift key, you can slow down time. I will say I played this game I played through it about a month ago, and one change that the developer made over this last month was that originally you had unlimited slowdown essentially, and then in this newest update, it would actually eat away at your money. And so the second time I played it was a different experience for me because I was trying to get that money, that high score. I wasn't trying to rely so much on slowdown. Tony, how did you play this game? And maybe you can talk about one of the most satisfying things is like what happens when you get those headshots? What about those headshots? Can you talk about that?
Oh man, it's definitely awesome. I think one of the funniest things is that I'm not so much of a keyboard and mouse player, so this is really my first time ever playing a first-person shooter with keyboard and mouse, and it was definitely an enjoyable experience. And when you get those shots, especially when you hold the shift and it's going in like a slow-mo type of mode, man, think of like the Matrix, but like just a little bit more funner. So definitely enjoyed it for sure.
Yeah, that sound, Amar, can anybody do their best impression of what is that sound when you hit those robots perfectly on the head? It's like
like when a baby's born.
Yeah, it's like a perfect game sound, right? Like it's like a high pitched.
Actually, that was the main reason why I wanted to like kill those enemies just to get those headshots. It's a different pitch for every headshot too. So like if you hit like multiple ones like in the same room, it's like a different almost delay after it. I forgot the noise sound behind it, but no, it is a really cool game.
Yeah, I love that fact that if you could line up and get multiple headshots in a row, the pitch of the headshots kept on getting higher, and you were almost like playing a little music there. It was really impressive in that regard. To the slow-mo portion, I know that was something that obviously kind of came in vogue with 1999's The Matrix, and I'm a huge sucker for Max Payne. If you all remember,
Max Payne really popularized that.
This slow motion. I thought this was super satisfying because combined with iron sights, it was very kind of satisfying to line up those like perfect shots and pull them off and hear that sound. Evan, what do you think in terms of, would you like to see this as a long form game? Could you envision it as something where you're like, towards the end they kind of hint, like maybe we can go to Buenos Aires or they mentioned a couple places. Could you imagine almost like a game where you're selecting different missions and taking them on in this kind of fashion?
Yeah, I think that'd be cool, to, kind of expand upon the universe. I mean, you could tell, the developers had a appreciation for first-person shooter games. I know I do. I mean, I've been playing since like Wolfenstein, Doom, way back in the day. So this is definitely wasn't my first time getting down on the WASD keys on my keyboard, So, but I mean, yeah, it could definitely use more weapons that you could choose from. I mean, but they give you everything you would need from a basic FPS. You got your pistol, got your shotgun, got your machine gun, got your rocket launcher. You got those in a first-person shooter game. You pretty much got everything you need to kind of get rolling and have some fun with it. And I hope they can add some more variety in the some of the enemy types. I mean, and the way honestly, I know y'all mentioned a lot of the slow motion mechanics. I barely used it.
Why was that?
Look at me!
I mean, I don't know. I like
the high score over here.
No, I'm just saying, like I mean, I like the. It was like without kind of relying. I mean, of course, I had to slow it down a little bit for like the boss fights because I kind of needed to figure out how to do, especially that last one. I needed to kind of figure out how to defeat it, but I mean, I like it was chaotic, like like especially some of the boss fights happened so fast. I was surprised that I survived. I was like, wait, I'm still alive. Yes, let's keep going. Like So I don't know. I like I like when this like a frenetic pace, it kept me wanting to keep going to the end. So I mean, I couldn't put it down.
And I want to add, everything explodes. It's like
Yes.
they're like old, like the old Hong Kong, like the John Woo movies, where like everything explodes. It's like, the bullets will hit the wall and then just like particles of everything around you.
Yeah.
That's what the game felt like, without even using the slow mo. Like adding the slow mo and just seeing all the explosions too. Like that was just like another just like cool addition. Someone in the chat said like it's like Ghost in the Shell and Deus Ex, and I was like, yeah. It has those, and it has like, if you guys play Time Splitters and also like GoldenEye, like it kind of gives a lot of the like those like early 2000s games.
Mm-hmm.
It's still like had like kind of like a newer control where like I didn't feel like I'm playing like an older game in any way. It felt like like it brought in all of the cool stuff that we like from new games, and also kind of like the old school level design where like you have to open up one door after another, and bosses and weapons, like Evan said earlier. It's a lot of fun. I'm surprised I liked it as much as I did.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, 'cause I was right about to read that comment that the Deus Ex, Perfect Dark, all that world. It's almost like what we thought 2020 was going to be back in 2000. Right? Like, the Matrix, we thought we'd all be wearing leather and everything would be blue, right?
I mean, people still do, man.
Yeah, no, for sure. As far as going back to that original style, I know, Stephanie, at the top of the conversation, you were mentioning Duke Nukem. I know you and I were kind of raised on those like early FPSs, Duke Nukem, Blood, Shadow Warrior, Quake, all that type of stuff. How much did this remind you of those like earlier experiences? Do you felt like that?
I felt like your mom was gonna yell like across like from the other side of the house, be like, "Pizza's ready," but it'd be like in forward. But I would be like, "Okay," we're like run up the stairs and like, let's go get some pizza. Yeah, it definitely reminded me of that. So I felt like comfortable in it, even though I'm not. Again, I usually play like adventure point and click games, like give me a Monkey Island any day. But but for sure, I definitely felt comfortable because I knew how to use those keys, so it was nostalgic for sure. Because I was like, okay, I just got one gun, I don't have to worry about all these other things that I can do. So it doesn't.
No, that's a good point, and I think that we've seen a kind of a resurgence of this gameplay style. Probably, I think most of it can be attributed to the reboot of Doom that we saw recently, Doom and Doom Eternal. Tony, like, as far as that, let's talk about that briefly. I mean, we had this era of games where, because of technical limitations, probably story limitations just creatively, that we had this era of games where, the most interactivity was usually like the end screen with some storyline, or, like key cards and just going through rooms and just killing the hell out of everybody. And then we saw like a much slower pace of games in the early 2000s with Halo, with military-focused games like Call of Duty. Do you see this trend? I mean, I guess, is this why indie games are so interesting, because they can explore this whole world? Or do you think this is part of like a growing trend back to this kind of simpler times of the 90s, when it's mainly just run and gun and slow-mo and shoot shit up, right?
Cyclical.
Yes.
Cyclical.
Yeah, cyclical. Yes, I definitely see that certain trends are cyclical. One of the things that you see coming out, and why this game was so attractive to me too, is that we're in a point in 2020 where you're going to see a lot of arcade style games. Like you had Xbox Arcade, you have all these arcade style games where it's like, hey, I can pick up the controller, I can pick up the keyboard, let's get this going, and then minimalistic story, but something enough to sort of engage you enough. So I do see it being cyclical back to an era where you can just pick up and play, pick up and go, pick up and do something. And this is simply because as we progress, like I said, 2020 is probably the most interesting year. We got so many so much stuff happening. So honestly, I just want to pick up the controller and just play a game. I don't need to read an encyclopedia or know what I mean, or XYZ. I just want to have fun, and you're going to see that a lot. I know there's a lot of companies that stuck to that. There's a lot of companies that stuck to that theology of like, hey, I want stuff to be fun. I want the game to be an escapism from reality. So I definitely see it being a cyclical where that type of gameplay is coming back.
Yeah, and Evan, to that point, I mean, we're kind of, I don't know if we've already peaked, but the whole idea of like open world, million missions, exploration games being like 30, 70, 100 hours. What do you think? Do you think we might see more? Is this relegated to the indie space, or do you think this is like a sign of a larger gaming trend that, to Tony's point, that in these times we want to have something maybe that's just simpler, actiony, fun, linear?
Well, I mean, that's right down my alley. I mean, like I said, I think Tony hit it right on the head. I mean, we just want to jump in and play. I mean, we all got busy lifestyles, and sometimes, I mean, a younger version of me would maybe, can delve into the lore of XYZ game
Sure.
and get all the side story and stuff. And nowadays I'll be like, I got like 30 minutes. Let's see what I can get done in 30 minutes. Like I don't have time for just let me just hit the main points. And I love that. I mean, especially where my attention span is set up nowadays, it's like I don't need a whole lot. If it's entertaining and engaging like SYSCRUSHER definitely was, sign me up for more of that.
Just out of curiosity, how many of you guys beat the game? Just finish the game.
SYSCRUSHER?
Yeah,
I wasn't able
SYSCRUSHER.
to.
No, that's fine, and that's fine.
Yeah.
I'm curious because like I played it, and that's one of the few games that I actually finished. And I was going to say like I don't usually like first-person shooters. They make they give me motion sickness and all that. And I played this game, and I was like, okay, let's see how fast I can get. And I was like, wow, I actually moved really fast in this game. And I was like, wait, I actually like this. Just because of the fact that it didn't start with a story or anything, it just went at it, and I ended up finishing the whole thing. Actually, throughout the game, I got to a point where I was like, let me just see if I can get past some of these enemies, and I was able to. And then, was able to like finish the game once, and I stopped playing it again because I saw some people were like doing speed runs and stuff like that, which is a newer thing, and I was like, let me see how fast I can beat it. And I wasn't able to beat it the second time, but I made it really far, and I would just like do this hilarious thing where like I would just run past all the enemies and get shut down. But it was like enjoyable to just like even go in fast, and I probably should use like the slow-mo more, but like I would just run in and like again just like the John Woo thing, I'm like just this badass guy just going in there with like double guns and like just shooting everyone, headshotting everyone, and just going in like that. I liked it for that. I liked it for how fast I can get into it and play it. And I know the developer said like it was going to be a demo. I would love to like see more of like just multiple levels of like different themes of things like this.
Yeah,
and I would just go through them and I would play them again just to do maybe collectibles or things like that.
Yeah, and speaking to that kind of like the gameplay being somewhat lighthearted, I think there's a level of humor here. There's obviously not too much story, but Jordan, how did you feel about the enemies having like the smiley faces on them? You had like an assistant that would talk to you occasionally throughout the mission. Everything seemed rather lighthearted, right? How did you feel about how humor was handled in the game?
That with the music are two of my favorite parts. I'm not like I can hold my own in shooters. Like I'm good with the controls, whatever, but they're not like my favorite kind of game. I don't look for shooters that often. But this one was just like goofy and lighthearted and fun. Like not only did they all have like the sad faces on them, but like you said, the higher pitched like headshot sounds. And I want the record to show I'm not good enough to achieve that normally. Thank goodness for slow motion, or else I would have never gotten multiple headshots in a row. But like they also have like it's so fast, and I was playing in a hurry. I was running through and killing stuff. But you can still hear them be like, "Oh no, it's the SYSCRUSHER, get him!" But like in robot voices, it was just super, just like the SYSCRUSHER. It's just really funny. It really made it an enjoyable, like fast-paced experience. Like I'm getting so much enjoyment packed into a small bite that I would absolutely play more levels.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that we're all speaking to. The fact that this was just a super polished experience, right? The sound was awesome. The humor was on point. The gameplay, most importantly, was just really on point. It sounds like all of us are giving this a thumbs up. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Okay. Cool. Well, unless there's anything else to be said about this, I might transition to our final game, if that's okay. Okay.
I miss boss fights. I want to say that.
Say it again.
Oh.
I miss boss fights. That's all I want to say.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
Actually, can I say one thing? So the only kind of like slight criticism I'll say is that the primary way to beat a lot of the mini bosses, I felt, was the kind of the classic circle strafing, right?
I missed that.
Once you got the circle strafing down and just avoided any of like the little henchmen guys, it was a little easy. So I will say that if this is expanded to a longer form game, I would like to see a little bit more variety in terms of how you interact maybe with the environment to prevent you from just relying on that type of strategy.
Yeah.
But yes, definitely 2 thumbs up from me. I really enjoyed it. Okay, so let's transition to our final game of the night, and that is the game Minit.
Yeah.
So that was Minit by the developers you see there, published by Devolver Digital, which of course I'm assuming many people are familiar with Devolver Digital. So let's talk about Minit. This was definitely the longest game of the night, despite the title Minit. It's still a short game, but it was the longest game of the 4 that we played. Just to be brief, the basic idea is almost kind of like a time loop, sort of. I hesitate to say that because I actually think upon further reflection, it's not necessarily a time loop. So just for everybody who hasn't played this game, is at the beginning, as you can see, kind of in a Zelda-ish style, you pick up a cursed sword. And as soon as you pick up this cursed sword, the game starts in the top left corner to have a 60-second timer, and once the 60 seconds goes down, you essentially die or are knocked out, and you have to restart back in your home, or whatever you set as your home. Now, the only reason I hesitate to call it a time loop is because the actions that you do in the world have real-world consequences, and it seems like some of the characters that you interact with in earlier runs still seem to remember your interaction. So it more so might be a time loop in the sense that you are knocked out over time. Stephanie, I watched you and your husband Jason play this game. I love watching other people play this game. What did you think about the mechanics here? This isn't quite common. I'll discuss that later, but this whole idea of the time loop mechanic, how did you guys respond to this?
Yeah, I played it while we're downloading all these games for our indie game club, and I kind of just played it just for fun. And then so I figured out oh my gosh, the Minit is the Minit. Yeah. Oh, okay. And then so I had Jason play, and I was like, just I don't know, just do something. I don't know, let me see what you do. And then he got it, and he was like, wait, what happened? And no, it's been a lot of fun. I mean, I think I figured out that you die or get knocked out when I talked to the old man, and he kept talking, and I was like, wait a minute.
I love that part.
No. What happened? And so, then I got knocked out.
Yeah.
So, no, it was definitely cool to see Jason would take different paths, So I was like, oh, yeah, that, where do you water your garden? I don't know. Let's see. And then you and your family were kind of in the chat, trying to get us oh, see what happens if you just stand in the quicksand. And then so I was awesome to have, people tell you the little secrets or different ways to do it. So definitely fun.
To that point, I'll actually say that was my daughter's advice. So if you watch the stream, I was playing with my 6-year-old daughter, and there's a point in the game where you can kind of there's these ghosts that essentially are hint ghosts, and they give you these kind of cryptic riddles about what to do next. And so my daughter was like, Dad, you should. I didn't even notice it, but she read one of the ghosts what they were saying, and she was like, "You should just stand in the quicksand." And I was like, "I'm not gonna lie." As like a parent, you know, you hear your kids suggest all sorts of crazy ideas, and I'm like, "Okay, at some point we'll do that." And I totally dismissed it. And then at one point, just to satisfy her, I was just like, "All right, I'm gonna stand in this quicksand." And we fell right through the quicksand to earn like a whole bonus area to get a coin. I don't know if you guys unlocked that or not.
No.
But 2 times, my 6-year-old, she figured things out that just blew my mind.
Our generation has been told to stay away from quicksand, so
Yes.
I'm just saying, like, it was a generation thing, you know, that Lake's like, I'm not afraid of quicksand.
According to my son, I think he said quicksand's not even actually real, or at least the way we believe it isn't real. Amar, I see nodding enthusiastically to that point. Amar, as far as like the gameplay here, how would you? Is there kind of a game you could compare this to? Like, what? How would you describe like your activity, how you're feeling while you're playing this?
Like, I know like some other games try to do the whole loop thing. I know not Ocarina of Time, but Majora's Mask back in the days. Of course, Groundhog Day. But I don't know. There's a new Xbox game that I cannot remember the name of it that was announced. That was a kind of a detective story.
And
Deathloop.
12
Okay,
minutes
yeah.
as well, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a couple of games. I remember seeing this game, and I was like super hyped up about it. And then I think I played it, and the 30-second idea did not hit as much as I wanted it to. Maybe it was a little bit too frustrating when it came to solving the actual puzzles, right? Like trying to actually find the pieces. Like I felt like I was doing something where like the 30 seconds was just like too punishing for me to like. I just want to go out and explore, right? I want to talk to the old guy. I want to hear what he's saying, and I think that was the point when I like, and then I played it again just to give it another chance with a guide this time, and I got further, and I think when I got to the first time when I got to, I forgot what it was. It was I think like a campsite. When I got to the campsite, I was like, that kind of took away some of the novelty from like always starting from the same spot. And I was like, okay, there's another spot that I'm starting from now. And for whatever reason, I assumed that there would just be more of those. But at the same time, I enjoyed like the amount of details there are around the level, right? It's almost like I wanted to love so much about this game because there's so much, like, I love the visual style. I love, you know, the tiny scorpions, the tiny crabs that are moving around. Like, there's like so many cool animals, so many cute things just going on around. But I felt like I just got, I don't know, I was just bad at the game and I got punished so many times. To the point where I was like, okay, I ended up watching like someone else play it and actually beat the whole thing. And I enjoyed it that way. But like, funny enough, after watching someone else beat it, now I actually want to go back and play it some more just to like do some of the interactions myself, like talk to the bartender and stuff like that. It's definitely, visually, it is a super beautiful game. I think mentally I had an idea of what the game was going to be, and again, that is like from a long time ago, before, you know, it was placed in any bundles and so on. And when I played it, it didn't go to the expectations that I had. So I didn't like it for just unreasonable expectations that I set up, more than it is anything on the game itself.
I love how you said that it's a beautiful game for those who are watching this. It's black and white, like it's two colors. I think it's remarkable. You know, the developers involved in this, one of them was involved in Horizon Zero Dawn. Another is a member of Vlambeer, who is an indie game powerhouse. Tony, I know you've put a lot of hours into this game and really enjoyed it. Can you kind of talk, you know, like to the points that we've heard here? I know Stephanie said she's a huge fan of point-and-click adventure games. This almost reminds me more of that than many other genres, right? It's made from a Zelda perspective, but it very much requires you to kind of do some sort of detective work in terms of listening to the dialogue, being very observant about where items are. And from what you told me, I don't think you looked up any spoilers or walkthrough or whatever. So what's your experience been like with the game?
So for everyone on the call, it's an 1.5-hour game. I actually logged in about 10.5 hours. When you actually go into the apartment or your home, you go to the basement, you can actually see how many times you've died. I've died 225.
I love it.
225. One thing that it's very funny, it is an adventure game, but it's interesting because the first thing when I came into it, I was like, wait a minute, it's an adventure game that actually restricts exploration because you only have 60 seconds, right? So it restricts exploration. But then at the same time, it's like, oh yeah, and also the visual art style is very beautiful. I like to say it's like an Atari DOS, but they use that color palette and they use that color palette in those visuals to make very complex landscapes, make very complex. At one point, you can actually go into a bar, hit a juice box that looks very detailed, and someone starts dancing. And so that's one thing I really like about this game too, because it's a very old school palette, very old school simple game. By simple, I mean literally two buttons. You have an action button, you have a suicide button. So, like,
Exactly.
I personally, for a while, couldn't understand. Like, I had to keep forgetting to not push B. So that's probably how
I misclicked it a couple times.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's just such an one of the beautiful thing about these games is that it's such an old school style visual, but there's a lot of 2020 elements in it. You know what I mean? Like the idea, like I said, an adventure game that restricts exploration, that's pretty odd. You know, or the fact that you can, and you eventually start memorizing the map. You start memorizing certain things. By the way, when someone said an old guy was talking very slow, I think that was trolling. I think the developer literally put that to troll you, dude. I literally
I love that. I love that part of the game.
That's a 2020 concept. Like, yo, we know we're gonna just mess with you, and this is a part of the story. You need to get past this. This guy's gonna take 45 of your 60 seconds to speak to you. So, but yeah, overall, what I would say, I spent 10 and a half hours playing that game, and I have not beaten it. I played it completely blind, and I'm still playing it blind. I wish to do that. The puzzles aren't too hard. They're hard enough to you might be stuck on it for like 30 minutes, but at the same time, you'll get that bait where you go ahead and solve the puzzle, and then there's a puzzle right behind that, or it's a puzzle, but it keeps you. It's not too hard. It's forgiving in the puzzle area. You definitely do die 60 every 60. You can't get away from that. So like, but yeah, I love that. I really, really thoroughly enjoyed that game because it's just such a unique concept. One of the things, like I said, is that it's an old school art style. It's an old school concept. Hey, adventure type. You get a sword. You kill enemies. You sit there, go find keys and open. But it has 2020 gameplay aspects in it. You know, so I just love. I really did enjoy that.
Yeah,
game.
I love what you said there in terms of there are definitely points that kind of bottleneck you and kind of you get frustrated and you're just like Stephanie was saying with those old school adventure games where you're just like, what the hell? What do I need to do next? And those could drive you nuts. But what I do like is that at least you can see, well, if I get this item, kind of that Metroidvania style feeling, and if I get this item, then I know I'll be able to interact with this character because there's a whole living world, to Amar's point. There's a whole living world to interact with, and you start to like catalog in your mind. Well, I know I talked to this guy who mentioned this and this and that. I love this whole time loop mechanic. Jordan, you know, Amar was saying how, you know, he mentioned Majora's Mask. I've been thinking recently about the Outer Wilds, if people have tried that, a very similar kind of concept where I forgot the exact timeline. I think it's like 20-something minutes. The whole game like kind of resets. One of my favorite indie games for the public, if you haven't played this one before, it's called The Sexy Brutale. It's a murder mystery where you're reliving the same day until you solve the mystery. Majora's Mask, Deathloop in 12 minutes are coming out. What do you think about this idea of time loop mechanics? I mean, maybe it's more in vogue now. I know the developer of this game actually said that maybe it's because of our lives being so intense and like time consuming and we're so paranoid about time that might be the reason why we're kind of seeing more games of this variety. What do you think about that time loop mechanic in this game? How would it have been different? What do you think if we eliminated the time loop mechanic? Would this be the same game?
No. In fact, I don't want to say if gimmick is the right word, but I don't think this game would be as good or have as much attention if it didn't have it, because it is like a Zelda, it is like a Metroidvania. It's certain things that it's done before, or that have been done several times before, but because of the time loop in mind, like they knew what they were designing it for, just like the troll of the old dude. So I'm gonna go ahead and say I don't like time limits in general.
Okay.
Like when I was a kid, I actually didn't even really play Majora's Mask until I was like 16 or something.
Sure.
And even then, someone helped me find that like Scarecrow that you can play an Ocarina song that doubles your time for each day.
Yeah.
Great. Like that's absolutely wanted that. I don't like redoing things. I hate it. When the batteries in my Game Boy would run out and I hadn't saved, oh my God, I'd be so upset. I'd cry. But no, but this game still had its charm to it. I really like the old dude. It's just like a screw you moment, because it gets you thinking. Because I'm try hard, like I take things seriously, like
Sure.
or at least in attempts. So I'm like maybe, and I know they designed it this way on purpose, but they're like maybe if I reach it a few seconds earlier, he can finish what he's saying and I can get something. But no, it's just a troll. So it had its moments, it had its charm. As I said with SYSCRUSHER, I was running out of time doing the homework. My bad. So I didn't finish the game, but I do think I want to go back, even though that the element might be annoying me in general. The game was charming enough. How about this? I was thinking while playing it, if it wasn't for like, the aha moments when you figure out the puzzles, also the music, I really like the music.
Oh, yeah.
I would have put this game down already. I would have, because that mechanic is annoying. But the other things around it, I was like, wow, no, this is actually, I like this. And then Amar was saying the other checkpoint, like the other starting point home or whatever, was like maybe not a great thing. The moment I saw that, I was like, oh, thank God, I can play this game. Like, because if I had to keep coming from the same part and do the same thing over and over again, I would have not.
I think again to defend myself here, it's more of an expectation thing, like where like in my mind I came into this game where like I wanted to be able to reach everything within the same game, within like a really small, like a much smaller level, right? And then the problem for me ended up becoming going in from one screen to the other screen and trying to travel. I know there's even. Actually, where I stopped was a part, and I'm not gonna spoil it, but like it was a part where I was struggling to get to what I wanted to get to because I was running out of time, right? And it just turned into I had to just try until I get it kind of situation because I'm lost, and I was like, okay, and that's I think what frustrated me about it. So like seeing the other the trailer, the campsite, I struggled with that because I was like, wait, so the game is now going away from the city, which is what I loved. I wanted to be able to like find things that were right in front of my eye the whole time, and I wasn't able to get to. Like the quicksand is actually a good example of that. Like the quicksand would have been a place where I'd be like, okay, now I unlock the quicksand, and now I can go in from the start, right? Like that's what I had in my mind going into this game, and I fell into this really bad trap of setting the expectations and wanting a game that is just different than what I ended up playing, and that's why I struggle with this game. And again, I love it because it's charming, and I'm mostly frustrated because I want to explore it. And I know you guys said that it wouldn't be the same game. I think I would play the whole game without the timer. How silly is that? It would not be the same. It would be boring. I know that, but like I will just go one piece at a time and finish it, and just think of it. It's going to be an average game, I guess, compared to what it is. But I will beat it. I'll be like, okay, it's a short game, and I just finished it. More than it is like a unique situation that you guys are enjoyed a lot, right?
And whatever.
I know Stephanie was going to jump in here, and then Tony.
No, let Tony talk.
Tony and then Stephanie. Yeah.
So one of the things that was really interesting about the game is that I drew maps and I took down notes. I drew maps and I took down notes.
I love that.
And that's how, dude, it's like a $5 game that you got off of Steam, but somehow I was so invested in it. I remember at one occasion, I actually I went to sleep. I was like, man, I'm stuck on this part. It was something about like, hey, you have to go find a place where there's snakes. And I'm like, dude, there's no snakes. There's a bunch of crabs. But there's something like you had to go find snakes to do something. I went to sleep and woke up and then found and remembered that the snakes are underground. You have to go underneath one of those caverns to find the snakes. And like, that's the only place where snakes exist in the game, or for the most part, where I saw where the snakes exist in the game. And I fell asleep and remembered that. Another thing, I was stuck on a particular area that when Mike just showed the game trailer, I was like, oh, well, that's how I can use the throwing knife to go ahead and solve that puzzle. So, man, I mean, like I said, it's a fairly affordable game on Steam.
Sure.
But I invested so much into it, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. And we should say this game is not only available in the Racial Justice and Equality Bundle, but it's also available now on Game Pass. I know Epic
Yes.
Games Store gave it away
Free.
free at one point as well, and it's been included in several bundles. So you may even have the game and not realize it. Don't make the mistake I've done before, where I find a game and I'm like, this looks awesome. Then I realize I already own it. Stephanie, you were going to jump in there?
I mean, I was gonna say, because you keep saying, well, what if we took the timer element? It's like, well, then you're gonna have to change the title of the name, everybody, because Minit.
Yeah.
Like, what else are you gonna do? Yeah, but definitely when you're saying with the map, yeah, like that just brings me back. We recently like played Myst, you know, and like as a kid, never beat it because I was like frustrated. You know, so I feel like as an adult, maybe we have these, you know, like, okay, we can do it like Taskmaster. Because with this game, you cannot multitask. You got to get one task done in that time. So it's definitely breaking my brain. So I think that's where I get it. Where like, let me go there. Let me go do this. Like I have so many uncompleted projects that maybe Minit will make me finish all these craft projects I have, you know, just things to do. So.
Yeah, I honestly... sorry, go ahead, Jordan. Jump in.
Just real quick. You know, isn't that like a time management exercise?
Yeah.
Like you put away all distractions and you give yourself a set amount of time. Now a minute is pretty low. You do like 15 minutes or 5 minutes, but or an hour. But yeah. I'm pretty sure that's an exercise to like get your life together. I know one that I've done and been recommended, you know, and just give it your full focus. I never made that connection, but that's cool. Could be like cognitive training in the game.
Yeah. It does really feel that way because you have to, like, when you start a run. I remember, Stephanie, watching you. Jason was like, what are you going to do on this run? You guys were, like, talking to each other.
I know. I was like, I'm quitting the game. I'm out.
That's what I'm doing on this one. I'm quitting.
Because you got to have a plan, right? And to me, like, I absolutely love this game. I honestly, I love the time loop feature. I think that makes the game one thing I want to talk about, and to kind of Tony's point about like this being an old school game with 2020 elements, what I love about that is I recently, probably a couple months ago, read an interview with Shigeru Miyamoto, the creator of Mario, Zelda, all these storied franchises. And when he was reflecting on Zelda, the original Zelda, if you guys recall it, part 1 on NES, it was a truly open world game. You could tackle dungeons in any order. And one thing he had in mind when he designed the game was the social experience, which is kind of bizarre to think about in the 80s. But the whole idea is he anticipated people in the schoolyard and the playground sharing secrets with each other. And there would be like weird riddles. Some of them riddles were like translation errors from localization, but some of it was, you know, true like riddles. And it was trying to figure this out. And that really resonated with me with this game because there's so much like mystery, so much stuff. Some things that afterwards, like, I don't really want to spoil it. There's a part with a camera. I don't know. The first time I played this part, like, I missed it totally. And I was just like, But everything else, I really enjoyed. Now, Evan, I know that you had some... I know you were texting me about how much you loved SYSCRUSHER. You weren't as thrilled with Minit. How far did you get in this? What did you feel as far as where it fell in kind of modern game design? And how did you feel about the time loop mechanic?
I'm gonna be honest with y'all. You know, some
that's fair.
You know,
be honest. That's what this
fair.
is about. Be honest with us.
That's fair.
Yeah,
Tell us.
I knew coming in to, you know, when I kind of looked at the trailer and the genre, it's not a genre that I typically play. You know, as far as like when, you know, the platform adventure Zelda style games. I know where my attention span is. You know, so it's a game I wanted to love. Like it's the format is very creative, you know, the whole, you know, because like I enjoy movies like, you know, Source Code and Happy Death Day when you got like the Groundhog's Day type storyline. Yeah, Edge of Tomorrow. I love those movies. So I was like, you know, the concept works, but like, you know, as far as, I mean, like I said, I feel like I should have took Tony's strategy and wrote some stuff down and like been more like detail. And you got to really have a plan because like the 60 seconds goes by so fast. It's like I wish they had some type of like hint or like some like little pills that you could get. Like just give me like 15 more seconds. I might be able to get this puzzle, you know. And it's like it's so. I mean, I don't know, but for somebody that, you know, is more of a casual in that platform, I needed something because I mean, without really like racking my brain and investing the time on the puzzles and stuff, it just it kept me from like wanting to get back. Like you know, when you get a little flow and I figured out a few things, I'm like, okay, I can see how people get catch, but if you get stuck in a loop, it's just like I can't. It's like a rage quit, So it's just like I couldn't stick with it. So
that could be frustrating, but that also, to me, I mean, we're all of a certain age now where we remember like pre-internet gaming, right? And to me, like, do y'all remember those days where like you got a game for your birthday and you had to like master the hell out of the game until Christmas when you got another set of games? We weren't getting like right now we're like spoiled princes, right? We're just like bundle this game and that. But before, you mastered the hell out of a game. And this, to me, kind of reminds me of that. I totally see your point, Evan. And I'm not saying that this is for everyone. I do hold on to that mechanic. I think being strict about it is important because the whole idea is like everything is approachable within 60 seconds. So from a design standpoint, they had to design everything to be approachable. But I will say that to the modern element, to the modern criticism, it may not be for everybody in that regard.
Yeah, so everyone keeps referencing. It's so funny. Legend of Zelda. Honestly, I'm taking it way back. This reminds me of Adventure. Like, you remember the Adventure on Atari's 2600? The idea is that you go from one point to get a key.
Yeah.
And it's linear, so it's like every single thing that you do opens up a puzzle for the next one. Opens up the puzzle for the next one. One thing I also sort of want to pinpoint too. I haven't finished the game, and definitely no spoilers here. But I did later in the game, my 7 hours in. But like, there is a story. There is a minor story where you start. I like I said, I haven't reached it, and I don't know the full bulk of it. But you start realizing it's like some of these environments, like they're trying to tell you something. Like first you're in a coal mine, and you're surrounded by miners, and then you get to a further part where you're around in the whole game they keep telling you go to the factory. Yeah. You're like, all right, sure, whatever. And then at one point I made it to a point where you're in a building and it's a long line. There's a bunch of people on this long line trying to get through like a metal detector to this building. So I no spoilers because I haven't finished the game yet, but I started seeing bits and pieces of like, I think they're trying to put some messages in here, or I think they're trying to say something.
I like that.
Yeah, and that's something I hope we can discuss more kind of in the future, because I think that the story, while it's very minimal and somewhat cryptic, is interesting. As we said at the top of this conversation about Minit, you don't actually experience the Minit component until you pick up the cursed sword. And that's not a spoiler, because that's the first thing that happens in the game.
Yeah.
But you really can't do anything, so it's almost like a curse, but there is no game until you are cursed, right? So I thought that part was really interesting. I know we're running low on time here, so if you guys don't mind, I'll transition to the trailers for next week, unless anybody has any last comments about Minit. Okay, cool. So next week we have 4 more games lined up, and I would love for the guests here today to kind of review these trailers, review their thoughts about these games that we will be checking out next week. So this first game we will be playing next week is called Night of the Consumers, and I will show you the trailer right now.
Excuse me. Purchase.
So that was Night of the Consumers. A very interesting looking game. It's essentially, I think the tagline is retail as hell. It's a survival horror retail game. Might be rather apropos,
Too
I guess,
real.
for these times, right? Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I don't know. How are we reacting to this game? The idea of taking survival horror in a totally different direction. What do you all think?
This actually really piques my interest. It's sort of like survival horror plus Black Friday, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, so this actually looks very interesting to me. It piques my interest, and I'll definitely check it out.
I love your analogy there, Black Friday. Yeah, George, can you relate to that?
Oh, definitely. I mean, we've maybe not all of us, but most people have worked retail at one point or another, so you know how crazy people can get.
Yeah.
I expect, and with that in mind, and with like people kind of learning, not everyone, of course, but large portions of the population, my friends at least, learning about how horrible people can be and be like, I'm going to try not to be like that and whatever. I expect humor in this game.
Yeah.
I expect a lot of subtle or unsubtle, just like, this is a horror and he's coming for you. And the person, it's like, I have to have the product. What do you mean? Like, you know, me killing you for it is extreme. You know, I'm really, I would be curious to see that. So yeah, it looks interesting.
Yeah, there's a type of horror that I think has not been explored, is retail horror. So I'm looking forward for Jordan Peele to make a movie about retail horror and people going in and
toilet paper.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, Stephanie, Evan, what are y'all's thoughts?
This looks awesome. I mean, coming from someone who has worked Toys R Us on Black Friday, I'm already having memories of of the horror. So this looks like something right up. Yeah, very much so. So I think this was a perfect combination of taking a genre like survival horror and bringing it to something like retail. So I'm excited to see how this comes together.
Yeah,
if there's a DLC with masks, on where you have to throw a mask on people,
throw a mask on people.
Every time I watch videos of people, I just want to slap a mask on them. I'm
PSA,
sorry.
everybody, wear your masks. I'm gonna have to wear. I found like a Corvo Corvo from Dishonored. I found a mask that I got from him, so I'm gonna start wearing that. I think outside.
That's awesome.
One thing I'll say that I think interesting thing about this is also kind of maybe a generational divide with I think Walmart and several other places announcing that they're no longer going to participate in Black Friday this year.
Yeah.
Finally, which is I think a pretty big step. I think from a PR standpoint, from like a human rights worker standpoint, it makes a lot of sense. But I will say that a part of me is like, it's one of those things that, you like look back at like the old times and tell your kids, like you have a cigarette and be like, you don't know what it was like. Because I remember the times when Black Friday, I remember witnessing my brother-in-law holding a Black Friday item and a middle-aged lady elbowing him in the stomach, grabbing the item from him and running straight to buy it. Those were like true, like the trample days. So,
Was it a Nintendo Wii? Was it a Nintendo Wii?
Yeah, Nintendo Wii.
Oh God!
No, it was before that. It was before that.
Just, before you go into the next trailer, the art style on it actually has the SYSCRUSHER style of going for like a retro like 2000s style. It's almost like developers now have like a nostalgia for like some of those games, and now they are making like those kind of games that are like 3D, but like almost like retro 3D, kind of like
Saturn era graphics. Totally.
Yeah. So I'm. It makes it even more scary, I guess.
We have a whole show about that because I think we all saw this coming when we saw like this whole nostalgia for like older games, nostalgia for pixel art, all this sort of thing, and we probably all predicted that the next era would be people who like the PS1, 64, Saturn was their era. And to me, in the back of my mind, I was like, I wonder how that's going to work, because that era, in my mind, is probably like that's the era I least go back to. Like Super Nintendo games, like have they have a graphical style that's like a fidelity enough to where like you can go back to them. But the PS1, 64, Saturn is just like they're ugly enough to notice them. But to your point, Amar, it's amazing. I love that. We're seeing that left and right, like games inspired by Silent Hill, games inspired by all this stuff. So yes, great point. So the next game we are going to show is the trailer for a game called Family. And here you go.
1, 2, 3, 4.
So that was the trailer for the game Family. I'll start off here by saying this game is a masterpiece. I've already been playing it. It's when I gave a little hint earlier at the beginning of the show that I would be interviewing a developer. Right before the show, I contacted this developer to reach out. So he jumped on and agreed to be interviewed next Friday. Folks, this game is remarkable. It's essentially a detective game, but there's no like crime or like no murder, nothing. The detection skills, your detective skills that you're employing, are just trying to piece together musicians of this era. So you're literally looking through band notes, writer agreements, like historical documents, and trying to piece together this family chart of musicians from this era. I could go on and on. I'd love to hear your reactions to this. It takes about an hour or so long experience. How do you feel looking at this game? Does this pique y'all's interests? Oh, Steph,
You're muted.
I got it. I figured it out. Thank you, Google. But yeah, I definitely was intrigued by the names of the bands and the families, like the watercolors. Like, I'm ready. I'm down. Like, album art, very cool.
Can I also add that the developer actually made the music to this game? These aren't actually real bands. It blows my mind. It has a full soundtrack, and the developer who coded, designed everything, created the music.
Okay, that interests me a little bit more now. That is very interesting.
The trailer seems like a story trailer. What exactly is the gameplay like? Is it point and click or?
Yeah, so the gameplay is like literally the game starts off with not to go too because I could literally talk about this game forever. So I'll be very brief. But the game starts off almost like a retrospective where it's like an NPR interview where somebody's interviewing somebody and you're listening to it and they're kind of talking about this era of music. And I'm obsessed with like old forgotten things in general. I don't know what it is, but like the 90s era, early computer stuff that the internet has forgot, time has forgot, fascinates me. And so this whole idea is you're essentially taking old band notes, interviews with magazines, all kind of pre-internet era stuff, and trying to piece together the names of these bands. So you're almost like being a little amateur historian and saying, well, this person left this band to join this band. And the whole time you can listen to music, you can listen to radio stuff. As a massive fan of music, this game touched me in a way I can't speak highly enough.
So it's very heavy. It's very heavy and puzzle and mystery. I don't know why, but it sort of reminds me, like based off you describing it. First thing is like Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. I don't know why. That just sort of came to mind.
Well, it has a mystery. If anybody's played Her Story before, one of I think the greatest games out there, this has that vibe to me. Again, lower stakes. Nobody's dead or anything, but it's really great. Amar, gotcha. Evan, how do you feel about this?
I'm honestly looking forward for the interview. Like I feel like my first impression is not good. I hate it that it's that way. Sorry, don't kick me off the show yet.
No, all good.
My first impression isn't that strong. Like I'm not a fan of that era or the music. And then I saw the gameplay, and I just don't know what I can interact with. And I actually booted up the game, although I did boot up the browser version, which I should probably download the game. That's the better way to play it. So I'm definitely like going to download, and I need to really dig into it just to see kind of like the brilliance behind it, because it is so unique. Like I cannot, from what I guess played, I would say, or like got into it from it. I haven't really dug that deep into it, and again, it's just, at first, it's not my kind of music, but that is not a good reason. Like, I played games that are not my kind of games, right? So I will definitely, dig in deeper into it, and I want to see, I might end up, having this game becoming one of my favorites of all time just after playing it, right? And I'm definitely looking forward for the interview next week. I really want to see kind of what inspired this, because it is very unique. It's almost, it sounds like it's a very personal game to the developer as well. Right, so I really want to see. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of passion, all these songs and so on. And I went to the band camp and I enjoyed the music and it was good, but I didn't see how it belonged in a game, and that didn't click with me yet. And I'm waiting for that click, and I will play it. That's for sure. And again, there has been other games that I saw them at first, like the Night Fisherman, and the Outcast Lovers. I wasn't, going to play them, but then after I actually played them. I was like, okay, these are amazing, and I want to play more.
Yeah,
So
and that's
we'll
what
see.
Indie Game Club is about. Like
Exactly.
we're trying a variety of things. For example, what the next game we'll be looking at, I haven't played it yet, and what initially wasn't what I would say my cup of tea, but it's a great opportunity for us to all kind of go out of our comfort zone. You know, entertainment right now, it's so easy to just choose the exact shows you want, the exact music you listen to. It's fun to occasionally be like challenged to try something you might not. So yeah, I appreciate that perspective. Evan, we were just talking earlier about Minit and how games, you know, it's not every game is for every person. Is this something that interests you?
I want to see more. I mean, the trailer. I mean, you know, I don't really get a sense of like, you know, the gameplay is just more of a, you know, kind of a teaser to so to speak. But coming from someone that has a very eclectic music taste, I mean, I listen to anything and everything. They got a beat to it, basically.
Yeah.
So I mean, you know, I think that, and given what you said about, you know, the NPR style format and kind of, you know, getting, and, you know, a whole soundtrack, you know, based off the developer. I really want to check out that developer interview. That it might, you know, really get me more like excited about the title in itself, and it just get a sense of more of, you know, I don't know how, you know, deep or complex the puzzles are going to be in the game, or the mystery as far as, you know, piecing things together. But I mean, it is intriguing. I don't know if it's like, you know, it's going to be on my must play list yet or what have you, but I am intrigued.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, glad to hear that feedback for that game. So definitely, hopefully you guys can kind of play those games next week as well, our guests here, and join that conversation. The next trailer, we're running close to time here, so I'm going to go a little bit faster here. The next trailer is for a game called A New Life, and I'm going to put it on right now. So that was A New Life by Angela He. It's more of your similar, I would say, to the first games we talked about today, Night Fisherman and Outcast Lovers, in that it's kind of defined as more of a kind of a visual, kind of interactive novel. What do you all think about that one?
I'm ready, man. I'm ready to cry.
Yeah, it feels like it, right? It feels like it.
It's kind of funny because, you know, I play games competitively some of the time. You know, like I said, I play StarCraft 2 competitively, but I also like the total opposite, like the first two games we played, just like narrative and structure and intrigue, you know, without much gameplay heavy elements. And I see that and I'm like, wow, I love this watercolor, like Ripley paper dabbed brush style, like the soft music and dialogue. I just feel like it's set up to have it, once again, turn off that light, play it, and have an emotional impact. So that one definitely intrigues me.
I just need a disclaimer that the ending is not like Doki Doki Literature Club or whatever, where there's some like weird, crazy twist at the end, and it's like fourth wall and breaking up your game. Okay, I just want it to be very straightforward. If it's a story that made me cry, let me know. But I don't want it to break.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm a crier. Yeah, play was it Moana, that one song, like, oh my gosh, I'll start crying. Yeah, don't even get me started. I cried at the end of the second new Batman movie. Yeah,
Yeah.
like what? Yeah.
I
So
love it. I love it.
I'll be ready for it. But yeah, maybe I'll turn
Awesome.
off the lights. That's a good idea, Jordan. I need to start doing that for games
Yeah.
to really immerse myself.
And this
Oh,
game,
yeah.
we should say, has multiple endings. You kind of saw that alluded to in the
Yeah.
trailer when it said, like, I can't
Yeah.
stop thinking of you in my mind, and the replay kind of element. I have not played this myself. But Amar, kind of to your point earlier, this isn't like the game I would immediately jump to. I definitely would consider it, but it intrigues me very much so. How do you feel about this
And
one?
I actually played it's not similar. It's another game that is based on a relationship, which is usually not my kind, like the kind of games that I pick up. And I remember I played that one before, and that was the one that got me into, remember, like, hey, okay, maybe you need to get out of your box and play a game. Because
Yeah.
with the first one that the game is called Florence that I played before,
Yes.
and I remember I saw like a reviewer, like at the end of the game of the year thing. He was like, going hard for it, and he ended up crying. And I was like, oh my gosh, like why did? Then I got it, and it was a mobile game, and I played it on my phone, like laying on my bed, and I ended up tearing up. I was like, oh my god, like this game is really good. So there's not a lot of I still think that there's not a lot of games that touch on relationships in general, and the ones that they do. When I looked up like games with relationships, like things like some games came up that they had like different mechanics, whether they were RPGs or they were even Mass Effect was an example. Like they came up, but the core game itself wasn't the actual like dialogue and the relationship itself. So for that reason, I'm looking forward to seeing like how that is explored. Usually those kind of games, and even including the Night Fisherman and Outcast lovers, like I want to add like those games like are usually made with like it's really hard to tackle like harder subjects,
Yes.
like relationships. So it in the development itself, like it takes a lot of just emotional labor is the word. So I'm interested to see how this goes, just out of respect that someone was able to like open up about a subject like this and talk about a relationship, and it's two women's as well, from probably what I would say.
Yeah.
Or they might identify themselves as. So I'm looking forward to see like where this goes, right? Like it's like it is not me, like I don't see myself represented in this game, but I want to see how other people feel, and I kind of want to see like a game from their perspective, and almost getting to that interactive experience of like seeing it from their view and what they think, what are their thoughts.
Absolutely. And the game you mentioned, Florence, we definitely plan on having on a future episode. Annapurna Interactive, the publisher there, has just been on a roll. They were also the publishers of the Outer Wilds. Yeah, who's operating that publishing side of things on the interactive side, you're definitely you guys are definitely doing your thing. For the sake of time, I might jump to the other trailer unless we have some other outstanding thoughts for this. Okay, cool. So I'm going to go to our final trailer of the night, and that is
Quelle foto sul giornale, le notizie americane. Te ne vai, non te ne importa. Suona forte le campane, suona forte le campane. Suona il clacson, tira il freno, polizia, carica arresti, ma tu corri troppo in fretta, breccia trema, scoppia treno. Sulla strada della testa scorre il film della tua vita. Giorni rossi di protesta, rabbia per come è finita. Scogli e Luna Park, wheels of Aurelia.
So that was the trailer for Wheels of Aurelia. That was the final trailer of the night. Guess any reaction to this game?
It looks cool. I mean, it's giving me that Spy Hunter type vibe with the driving, with the car and everything. So I like that. I'm liking, the art style, and that one kind of piques my interest. I want to see a little bit more of the how the gameplay works, but it could be fun.
Yeah, I'll say I haven't played this one before, so one question I have about that, to your point, Evan, is I'm wondering how it balances driving versus storytelling, because part of me makes me think that some parts must be kind of scripted, or you don't have control over your vehicle during those times, because I think it's rather hard to do both. So I am going to be curious to see what the actual gameplay looks like in this regard. But I love the idea of kind of a different journey every single time, that sort of thing. Any other thoughts about Wheels of Aurelia?
Don't put any Rainbow Road stuff on there, please. Like, that's why anytime there's any type of driving, I'm like, but yeah, it looks really neat.
I want to see if they, yeah. I want to see if there's any like text against driving mentality, like stuff added to it, because it's like you're reading text and you're talking, and you have to like, play the drive. It's interesting. I want to see what's going on there.
Yeah, I'm very curious about that. I'm very curious. Awesome. I want to thank you all so much for joining us this week as guests. I really appreciate it. All of you watching at home on Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, give yourself a round of applause, and please join me in giving a round of applause to our guests here. They did such a phenomenal job. Hopefully, everybody watching this, that you really enjoy this type of content.
Oh, it's in here.
This is the whole reason we made this type of content. This is what we like to watch ourselves, so we're hoping to produce more of this out here for you. So next week, of course, you can see us again on Indie Game Club. I'm gonna go through real quick our schedule for next week. But do I have any closing thoughts from our guests before they leave us? Any last words?
Thanks, Michael. Even after that intro that I gave, a little too information, I'm thanks that I'm still on the call.
Thank you, Steph. I appreciate it. I know I can always count on you, Steph. Thank you. Any other final words?
This was awesome. Thanks for including us.
Thank you so much.
Definitely, I didn't even know 3 out of 4 of these games existed, so to play them and enjoy them, and especially Night Fisherman and the other one, I'm like excited for the future ones. This is great.
Awesome.
Yeah, some of those games are not the ones that I'll be playing like day to day, so having this club is really, really cool. So thanks Michael, for doing this.
Yes, thank you all so much. I really appreciate it. You guys were the best. Great discussion all around. I really enjoyed it. Awesome. Well, I will be closing this conversation. I'm sure I'll connect with you guys online in a moment here with my appreciation, and I'll stay here for a few announcements. So thanks to our guests. We really appreciate you, and we will see you soon. All right, everyone. You just watched Indie Game Club, our Thursday discussions. Thank you so much for participating. We really appreciate it. As I said before, we have a Let's Play session every Monday of our new week's worth of games. And then every Thursday at 7 o'clock, we are joined by an amazing group of guests, just like the ones you saw, for a discussion. So if you enjoy that content, please take a moment to follow us, like us, subscribe, all those wonderful things. I got a list of people here I want to thank real quick. Christian Paul Anderson, thank you so much for following. I appreciate that so much. Paper Monster, DV Chan, thank you so much. We really appreciate all of those individuals for following, all the likes and subscriptions throughout the entire show. We really appreciate that. If you are interested in content like this, again, last week we had an event called Black Voices in Gaming. You can still catch that on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch, so we invite you to check out that. We had a wonderful discussion. At this past week, or on Tuesday, I should say, we had Women in Gaming. All of these are sponsored by our friends at Lowe's. We really incredibly appreciate their support. They're sponsoring several months worth of activities that we are doing, social and educational activities that, while during this time we have to practice, rightfully so, social distancing, let's make sure that we combat social isolation by coming together. Next week, of course, we have a program called Custom Game Controllers. This is going to explore the art, tech, and personal stories behind the world of custom game controllers. Rounding out our August schedule is Games to the Rescue, where we are going to have a live online discussion exploring how games are being used to fight coronavirus. Starting in September, we have a discussion called Hispanic Voices in Gaming with designer Julio Nazario, who is a North Carolina-based board game designer. You may have recently seen some of Julio's designs. He's been on a roll, and we can't wait to discuss those designs with him. Of course, on Wednesdays and Saturdays, every Wednesday and Saturday, I should say, we have online game night. This is a great opportunity for you to connect with gamers of all types. We play a wide variety of board games and video games online together, so please join us for that. If you're not part of our Discord, what are you doing? Join our Discord. It's a great way to connect with community. And of course, we have our Potions and Pixels online league every Wednesday. We have Smash and Learn sessions. This is a great way to improve your skills. Again, regardless of what skill level you are, this is a totally free league designed for all ages, intentionally designed for all skill levels. Tomorrow we have King of the Ring, which is a session, a scrimmage session, an opportunity to battle against fellow gamers. Please join our online league. It is open to everyone, all ages, all skill levels. It's free. You can sign up at potionsandpixels.com/league. Again, potionsandpixels.com/league. Sign up right now. Don't hesitate. And this Saturday, we will be having our first tournament, also free. All of this is free. So we encourage you all to participate in that. And there will be there are cash prizes involved for that. So please, please, please check that out. All right, everyone. So we've come down to the end of our show. Again, I want to thank our 5 guests that came on today. They were truly amazing. If you enjoy these types of discussions, again, please consider liking, following, subscribing, all those good things, sharing, whatever you can do. We also, as a nonprofit organization, we also encourage you to consider donating to us on our website if you like this work and the myriad of other things we do. So I want to thank everyone.